Welcome, everybody, to the Complete Student Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. And today, we've got a very special guest, longtime friend of mine, awesome man, one of the smartest people I know, one of the fittest people I know. This is Nathan May. Nathan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Didn't know I was supposed to be on camera, so.
That's okay. You look great.
I'm embarrassed wearing my Arsenal stuff.
You look exactly how we wanted you to look today, like you. Well, okay, so let's jump into this. Today we're talking about what it looks like to be a coachable person, a great teammate, and I just kind of want to start off by letting our audience get to know you a little bit better. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us, what you do, where do you coach, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I have a day job. I'm an analytics guy at TD Ameritrade, but I feel like I spend almost more time coaching soccer. I coach at Sporting Omaha, and I work with the 03s, born in 2003, so they're juniors and seniors at this point, and that's boys. And then I also help out with the girls at Westside High School. So those are kind of my two big coaching assignments at the moment. I've previously helped out with the Olympic development program in the area.
Sweet.
So, yeah, keeps
Nice.
me busy.
Yeah, very much so. So tell us a little bit about how you got your start into the soccer world. Tell us about your history as a player and then as a coach as well.
Sure. So I don't have a super exciting history as a player. I grew up here. I played here, did the club soccer thing. I think I probably got into it later than a lot of people. I didn't start playing club soccer until I was 15 or 16, where most kids start playing select soccer when they're younger. So that's kind of, I guess, some uniqueness to my story. But I was pretty much playing rec when I was younger, and I was really good at it. And so eventually I played select and eventually premier. And then I played in college at Simpson College, which is a smaller school, had some success there, but not anything super exciting, but I've definitely been involved with the game for a while, and I've stayed involved since college. So
Where did you end up playing in high school?
I played at Bellevue West.
Yes, Bellevue West Thunderbirds. Love it.
We weren't very good, though. I did a lot better at club.
That's fine. So, but how did you kind of get into coaching? Maybe tell us a little bit about why you got into coaching, from transitioning from a player to becoming a coach.
Sure. Yeah. So I started coaching my junior year in college, coaching at the high school level. And that was, again, me seeing that soccer was getting ready to be done, and I just really like soccer, and it was a big part of my life, and just trying to stay involved with the sport. And that's how it started. So that was the mentality when I started coaching, is I was still a player, but I just wanted to continue my life in the game, or time in the game. And so even those first few years of coaching, it's just you live for just jumping in the drills and playing, or, playing practice and whatnot. But it's definitely changed over time, where you always hear all the old head coaches talk about how it's relationships keep them in the game and whatnot. And that's very true, because I think that the younger guys who get into the game like me, or get into coaching like I did, they don't stick with it if it's not relational. Yeah. So I definitely feel that transition happening in my mentality over the last few years.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I like that. Even as as a youth pastor myself, it's if at some level we don't have a relationship with the students, and it doesn't become worth it anymore. That's the key point. So as you kind of look at your coaching career so far at this point, what have been some of your highlights as a coach? Some of the things that you look back on and you'd say that was definitely worth my time and investment with these kids.
Sure. So I guess I'll give you two, and one of them is more just a fun soccer story, and one of them is more relational.
All for fun.
And yeah, so 2 years ago, coaching the Westside girls, we had down year talent wise, bunch of really good kids, but we just had graduated a lot of good players. It was just one of those years. And so nobody really expected us to do much. And we kind of looked around on the roster, and we had some good players, but it maybe we didn't have super high expectations. And, 2 weeks into a season, our best player goes down with her second ACL in 2 years, and she was a Division I recruit, and so she was like one of the big players that we were like expecting. Like,
I remember you telling me about this.
We're gonna go as far as she can take us.
I remember you telling me about this because at the same time I had just torn my ACL for a second time as well, and so you were like, "Oh yeah, one of the girls on my team just tore her ACL for the second time," and I remember being like, "It's the way it goes, man."
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. But so anyway, so after that, it was just like kind of house money as far as the season went, and we ended up to get into state. We won a game, and then we beat the second ranked team in the state in the craziest game I've ever been a part of, and it was we were down 1-0 20 seconds in, 2-0 5 minutes in. And they had a girl playing up front who is just like a beast. Like she's playing Division I right now. And so it was just brutal. And then eventually we scored a goal. We crawled a goal back with maybe 20 minutes to go. So it was 2-1. And so we're like, all right, literally 15 seconds after the next play, they score 3-1. And so it's just, takes the wind out of your sails. But in the very end, we scored 2 goals, tied it up, and then won in overtime. And it was just like, it was the most insane game I've ever been a part of. And just the atmosphere on the bus ride back from Lincoln was pretty fun.
Bunch of girls in the bus just screaming. That just sounds like a riveting time.
It was a good time because, they gutted it out. It wasn't easy. And so that was just a really fun experience that, you get to share with a group of people that, I still have the newspaper in my office at home that it's just like, I'll always think that was fun. Yeah. And so that's a fun experience that we share with that group of people. As far as this year has been really rewarding because all these club guys that I've had for several years are starting to commit to schools, and, you start to see the enthusiasm that they get to go have playing at the next level that I had. And so just to have a small part in their youth soccer experience is humbling. And it's like not something I really ever expected to have that kind of impact. So it's cool to see.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Yeah, that's where that investment really pays off. Sure. So just kind of as we are talking about coaching students and whatnot, like what, in your experience, what has made for a really coachable person?
So it's super necessary that coaching is kind of a two-way street, I think. So when I think the definition of coachable, some people might think like, oh, if I tell you to do something, you're going to do it, regardless of what I tell you to do. And to me, that's not coachable. To me, it's kind of a two-way street because especially dealing with, high school age kids, I think it's really natural to question authority or to question the way of things. It's just natural for the age. So I think having that back and forth, and so if I'm a coach and I'm in power or the person with influence, you're supposed to do what I tell you, but I think that in order to really learn and have the best possible outcome of that relationship is you're questioning and trying to understand the motives behind it. And so that's your job. But then my job is also to see that as well and help you to understand why I might be asking you to do something you don't want to do or something you don't necessarily agree with or that you're questioning. So to answer your question, I think to be coachable, you have to be open to instruction, but also be able to make decisions for yourself and also understand that I could tell you something and I'm a human and it could be totally wrong, right? Because I don't get it right all the time. And maybe it's your job, being that coachable person, to say, hey, that's great. What about this? So I think that there's a back and forth there that is super important.
Definitely, high schoolers are really good at questioning things,
which is good. I think that's why I like high schoolers.
Yeah, no, we're not here to talk about parenting, but that's probably some really good parenting advice too. Like, embrace the questions. Would you say that when you were a player, that you were a really coachable player?
So I think that I was always trying to do the right thing. I think that I got frustrated with certain things sometimes. So I think that was difficult for me, and I'd kind of stew on my own. I would say that, yes, I was coachable because I would always try to come up with a resolution on what I can do, but it wasn't always easy. I don't always do the greatest with authority. Back in my young squirrely days, and still now, to be honest. But I think I consider myself a coachable person, but I don't think it's always pretty. Yeah. Like, to me, when I'm coaching kids, I don't want the ones who are just quiet, because you can talk, you can give them some complicated instruction and they'll just nod their head and you don't know if they heard that. Yeah. Right. So I think it's good to have that back and forth and be willing to have a bit of character and a little bit of personality with it when you receive instruction.
Totally. I guess it's probably coming from a player to now being a coach, just kind of things that you see and learn along the way. So what about for a teammate? Because soccer is not an individual sport. You know, you've got like the tennis and wrestling where you have all these individual sports, but a huge component to soccer and other team sports, basketball, football, is like being a really good teammate. And so as you look across your team, what would you say makes for some really great teammates?
To me, a great teammate elevates the group, right? And I think it's really easy to pick out the ones in a group who are maybe a wet blanket on the whole atmosphere, or the ones who are really pushing everyone forward. So whether that's something as simple as, you know, being enthusiastic in the warm-up, or, you know, having all your stuff ready to go, that all translates, right? Because if you're the guy who's, you know, taken forever to put your shoes on or whatnot, it makes a big difference. It sounds like one of those silly things that people talk about, but it just makes a big difference just to be prepared and to be focused and trying to carry out the task that the group needs to carry out, whether you're, you know, the lead top of the pile guy on a team or just, you know, anybody on the team. It's important that everyone is focused on the task at hand.
Yeah. Have you seen, I didn't ask you this question beforehand, but have you seen some of maybe the lower skilled players become some of the best teammates just because of their attitude or their preparation?
So I'm going to go off on a tangent here.
Okay.
Because I think that it deserves it. So as far as lower skilled, I think once you get to the high school level, there's kind of, you can group kids into two different categories in the competitive soccer world. And that's, one is that they've kind of been a high level performer their whole life, like 10 years old and on up. They've always been, like where I coach, the club that I coach at, there's multiple teams in each age group, right? So they're the first team guy, always have excelled. And they've been that way since they're 10 years old till, 18 years old. Yeah. So there's those types of kids. And then there's ones who have had to struggle a little bit, or have maybe been a third team kid. And a lot of times, maybe they play until they're 13 and then they're done. But then the ones who stick with it and who are driven, maybe they're a third team kid, 10 through 14, maybe they're a second team kid for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden they're a top team kid. Those types of kids are very different than their mentality is so much different than the top team the whole way. Yeah. So I always think, like, if you have a team of 18 or whatever of kids who have always been top of the pile, your team culture probably isn't the greatest, because I think you need those guys who have that sort of push the group on mentality, those ones who have had to struggle a little bit, because that's life. Like, sports are a microcosm of life, and True. Sometimes people have it all figured out and they've always done well, and other times you have to struggle a little bit. But I think that in a team sport, both of those mentalities are valued.
Yeah. So. That's cool. Yeah, that's an interesting twist on it, that those other guys who maybe don't have the best skill kind of really do create the culture almost in their competitive nature.
And I'll put myself in that bucket too, because I was on a pretty high performing club team, and two of the guys that I went to school with, I played club with, and one of them and both of them were just really high level players, like state accolades type of guys. And one of them lasted about a week in school because he wasn't the best player, and he'd always been the best player in every environment he's ever been. The other one lasted I think he lasted 1 season, and he transferred out. Whereas I was a lower level performer to all those guys, and not to pat myself on the back, but I was like, when I got inserted into that environment where everyone was better than me, like I was like, I'm used to this. Yeah. Like I've done this before. Yeah. So I think it's just important to have those different mentalities, and understanding that people are in a different place than you sometimes, and things aren't always go the way that you expect it to go, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's cool. When you look at, the makeup of the players on the team, there's always the one or two guys who maybe are going to get to put on that captain armband on the field, or, whether it's, I'm talking about soccer, but, basketball, football, there's only a few guys who get deemed to be the captain of the team. And so when you look across your team, like what for you makes for a great captain of the team?
So this might derail the question a little bit, but for my club team, and a lot of coaches do this too, we don't have captains.
Okay.
And the reasoning behind that is because it's kind of a status thing, right? Like if I give somebody a captain armband or whatnot, then it might go to their heads a little bit. I don't know. For me, my philosophy, and I address this with the kids, is it's like everybody can be a captain on a certain day. Right? Like it's not like we have one person whose job is to drag everybody else along. We're pushing each other along, because if I'm the captain and I'm having a crappy day and my attitude is terrible, then Jay is there to kick me in the pants and say let's go. Like, and to me, I find that with kids that works better, because we bring the status thing out of it, and it's just everyone is being a good teammate, like we talked about, and we're just pulling the group forward rather than putting that responsibility on one person.
Yeah, no, that's a good mentality. I have never thought about that.
It's different with, I guess, with adults and whatnot. Like when we look at professional teams, I think it's a little different.
Right, totally. There's always that captain, and a lot of times ends up being the best player.
I mean, Rooney, he's got the goods, dude.
He's got the goods. When you are just kind of thinking about, when I'm thinking about myself, my own career as a basketball player, I played basketball kind of same level as you as a soccer player, like definitely not the best, but tried to push along. And, there were moments where I remember feeling like, man, I deserve some more playing time in this game, right? Like you're maybe a role player and you've been working hard in practice, and you know that you're not the starter, but you feel as a teammate or as a player, like, you know what, I feel like I deserve more. What kind of encouragement would you give to that player who's like, you know what, I'm trying to put in the extra effort, I'm trying to put in the extra time. When is that going to pay off for me?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, because it depends on the environment you're in, but in a highly competitive environment, you could struggle to get chances, and it is what it is. I'd say my advice to anyone in that circumstance is just to, stay ready, continue to control the things you can control, be a good teammate, practice hard, pull the group forward like I talked about, but it's just doing those little things right, and hopefully stack good days on top of each other. But it is difficult. I don't want to pretend like it's not frustrating to be in that situation, and I think that it's healthy to be frustrated. If I have somebody on a team who's maybe not getting those opportunities, it's a good thing to be frustrated, because that means you care and you want to be a part of it. But I'd say just continue to realize that even if you're sitting on the bench, you have a role with the team, and understanding that it's not the results of getting to play or getting to start or that status symbol that goes along with that. It's the process and being with a group and being able to contribute in training or on the sidelines, and just trying to be process-minded over result-minded is really important, because the results don't always go our way, but when we're process minded and we're in the moment, like we'll always have that.
Yeah.
I guess. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. That does. Okay. Well,
it is difficult though. Like I'm not belittling it, and there's people who are going to struggle with it always, but I'd say just continue to stay ready.
We play for the love of the game.
Well, yeah. And I mean, even if you don't agree with your coach and you think that you're better than you are, I mean, all you can do is control what you control and do the best that you can do. And after that, it's beyond your control.
That's very true. Like you mentioned earlier, sports are just a microcosm of life. That's kind of how it goes. I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about connecting our faith to our athletics. And so, that's kind of what we have designed this podcast to be all about, is connecting our faith to these other areas of our life. So what role for you has your faith played into you as a coach?
So I think the biggest thing as a coach is just humility. It's to me, humility both as a player and as a coach in any sort of athletic arena is extremely important, because I think there's no growth in your faith or athletics or your job or whatever you're trying to improve at. There's no growth without humility. And there's the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, which is, if you're in a fixed mindset, you're not changing how you think. People Jay and I's age oftentimes get into a fixed mindset. Younger people, hopefully you're in a growth mindset, in that, maybe somebody knows something that I don't. I'm part of something bigger than myself. Let's just do the best that I can, support the people who are around me, and try to be the best person that I can be at any given moment. Makes a big difference as a player. And as a coach, I think it's being able to be empathetic in those situations, and knowing that, maybe an individual is not happy with their role or wants something more, and it's being able to relate to that and help them through that in a way that is beneficial to everyone, not just saying oh, you want to play, go and play. It's understanding that, again, it's a microcosm of life, and we have to work through these things in our own way.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much, Nathan, for your time
quick.
today.
That was it?
Yeah, man. I mean, any other closing thoughts as it relates to being a player, coach? Any advice that you would give to those players out there?
Oh man, asking a question off the books. I didn't ask for any of this.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, one more thing. If people want to find you, I know that you're on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
I don't really post on Instagram. I think it's Nathan May 41.
Nathan May 41. You can catch all of his amazing 10-mile runs and times, all the other good things that are going on with Nathan. Again, thank you so much for being with us today, and we appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing more.
Thanks, Jay. Hopefully I didn't say anything dumb.